Today's episode comes from a comment that one of you guys left on one of the YouTube videos. And what basically that it is was I was interacting with somebody and they made a comment that I'm going to make it big someday, talking about themselves. And it really got me thinking about that whole thing. I see and hear that phrase a lot, but what does it mean? And what should it mean to make it? The answers are in today's episode of the Steve Freeman Podcast.
The music business without all the bullshit. This is the Steve Freeman Podcast.
Industry in 2021. You're dead on when you talk about 2021. Statistically, you're right about the numbers boosting and supply and demand. Awesome show, and the last one too. That comes from JYDLV on Apple Podcasts. We'd love to have you rate and review the podcast. If you're listening on iTunes or Apple Podcast, rate us 5 stars. And leave a written review, and we will feature it right here on the podcast. Don't forget any links that I mentioned today or talk about. You can find everything you need to know in the show notes. Go to thestevefreeman.com, click on show notes, and you will find it there. There's links to social media there. You can get my free artist development masterclass there. Everything lives at thestevefreeman.com. We would also love to have you as a member of our new Steve Freeman Podcast Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group. All you have to do is request that you join. I personally approve them when I remember exactly which account is the administrator and can do that, then I will certainly approve it. Sorry, I've had some issues with that, but I think I've got it worked out. But we would love to have you as a member of the private Facebook group and continue. I think somebody's even going to do an online songwriter thing on there, which it's going to be cool. All kinds of things for you to meet people, talk, post your thoughts on the podcast and your comments and your ideas. It's a great place to do it, and I hope you will come over there and you will join us for sure. Today's topic, like I said in the beginning, comes from a comment that somebody left on a YouTube video, and they were asking me a question in the comment section, and I replied. And their reply back to me was, "I'm going to make it big someday." And for whatever reason, that statement hit me differently. I mean, I've heard people have said it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. I mean, I've heard it a million times. But it really got me thinking that with everything that's going on in the world, that maybe this is something important to talk about. I mean, I really wanted to explore this, and it's like, what does making it mean? Like, what is your definition of making it? When I hear somebody make the blanket statement that I'm going to make it big someday, what I think bothers me a little bit about that is that is predicated and based on the definition that someone else has achieved. And I worry from time to time about people's goals and about their dreams. I worry about what it does to them when you create such a definition of exactly what that means. 9 times out of 10, it's not your own definition. 9 times out of 10, it is, for you musicians out there, it's writing a hit song or having a #1 record as an artist or a writer, having hits, billions of subscribers. Those of you that are on YouTube or do podcasts or things like, you want millions of subscribers, you want to go viral on social media. You want to have tons of cash. You want to have the cars. You want to have the fame. You want to walk into a restaurant and everybody know who you are. I think that, and I don't think I'm far off base, but I think that's what most people would think that making it really stands for. And it bothers me because I'm not going to say that is unattainable, but what I will say is that happens for a very, 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 very minute, small percentage of people. And I think a lot of times we confuse making it and success, because you can be ultra successful. Some of the most successful people that I know are successful financially, personal, health-wise. They are successful in many other areas that don't necessarily have to do with accomplishing anything that I think we normally attribute making it to. And then I also ask myself the question, why is it so important? Why do we place so much validity and so much of our self-worth on accomplishing this ever-moving target of being able to say that you made it? I think that it's because society has convinced us that our personal worth is directly related to our status, our financial status, our social status, our social media status, our professional status. I think financial is a big one. I think a lot of times when people think about making it, I think what they're actually talking about is being wealthy, is being rich. And a lot of people think that because you're rich, you're famous, or because you're famous, you're rich. And I just know too many people that is not. I know famous people that don't have the money you think they do. And I know people that have more money than you could ever dream of that aren't famous. And I also know that talking to either people or group of people that I know in either one of those categories would probably still tell you to this day they don't feel like they've made it. And we talked in an episode not long ago, I touched briefly on mental health. And what I worry about for you guys is that you have fallen for this deception by society, this social media culture that we live in, that tries to convince you that your actual self-worth, what we see on Instagram, isn't true. It isn't real life. What we see on Facebook is not real life. It's what people want us to see. It's what they want us to think. It's what, everybody's living their hashtag best life on social media. But we've all bought into this belief, and we've allowed this social media culture in society to tell us that how many ever likes that post gets, or how many ever comments that post gets, that is your value. We have taken social media and allowed it to assign a real life human value. Think about it in social media terms. Why when you go and you look at somebody's Instagram, why are 100% of people very rarely do I see it the opposite, especially in this business. Why do we think it's a negative thing to follow more people than follow us? Because that's a rule that society has set out there, that if you're happening, you should have way more people following you than you're following. And it's just, and I know somebody's going to go look at my Instagram and they'll, Steve, there's way more people that follow you than you follow. I got to be real honest with you when it comes to social. I follow people that interest me. I follow people that have content that I like. You guys, when you DM me and you say, hey man, I found your podcast, I listened to your podcast, or I watch your videos on YouTube, I love the content, man, thank you so much, I immediately go follow them. And I've said that on this show before. If you want me to follow you on Instagram, DM me and let me know that you follow me. I don't know everybody that follows me. But I don't have this preconceived thing of, no, I can't. I can't follow those 50 people. That's going to throw my numbers off. But we've been led to believe that that's the truth, because we've been led to believe, and we've allowed society to assign a real world humanly value to our perceptive status on social media. And we can determine whether somebody in our own mind, we determine whether they've made it or not based on what we see on social media. And that's the other thing. For those of you that want to quote unquote make it, have you really, even if you accomplished, here's the funny thing, even if you accomplished everything on your list that you think adds up to the sum total of you making it, what if everybody else doesn't think that you have? Because you got to play expectations into this thing, right? It's not just about the expectations you have of yourself. It's about what other people think, because we care more about what other people think than what we think. And if you'll think really carefully about that, nobody likes to admit that, but it's the truth. And if you're being honest with yourself, it does matter. It's the reason most people, let's take women, for example, don't take Instagram photos without makeup on. Yes, every once in a while, there'll be some hashtag floating around and everybody plays in on the little challenge. But everybody, and not just women, but guys too, guys think they have to look cool. I do the same thing. I should post to Instagram probably 100% more than I do, but I'm just like you guys. I sit there and go, I don't like the way that looks. I don't like that angle. So we honestly care more about what other people think than what we think. What happens if you accomplish all these things that you've put on your list that you call and define as making it? What if that list doesn't agree with somebody else? And they don't think that you've made it because you've not made it under their definition of the term. We've allowed social media to convince us that we are equal to the value of our accomplishments. And this is a dangerous place to be. We wonder why so many people have self-esteem issues, while there's so many different people having different various types of mental health and problems and all of that. Because we're constantly trying to live up to something that we can't live up to. Why? Because we're trying to live up to someone else's expectations and not our own. If we set the rules and we said, look, I'm living a full life as long as A, B, C, D. And before we had social media, that was kind of how it was done. Yeah, we cared what other people thought, but it wasn't as public. And we didn't attribute or assign an overall value to ourselves based on what other people liked about us or if they liked the content we're creating. Because we didn't have that initial feedback. You didn't post something and then 500 people didn't not like it right away. So we've allowed that. We have allowed ourselves to believe that we are equal and valuable up to a point of our accomplishments. And we let other people convince us of that. Oh, we haven't done this enough. We haven't written enough songs. It's sad. It's sad that we've allowed this to happen. We feel the pressure, intended or not, by those around us that depend on us. I think that's a big part of it. Some wives, husbands, kids, parents, friends. We allow that pressure to basically consume us. Because we want other people to like what we do. We want other people to like what we post. We want other people to think we've made it. I don't ever understand what happened to the process. When, and where, and at what point did we get to a place where there's no value in the journey? You either made it or you haven't. It's too, and the funny thing of it is, the closer along political lines in our country, the big, huge divide that's in our country right now and going on around the world. It's funny that we've allowed all these other things to happen. It's no longer you're on your way. You're either there or you're not. It's kind of like going on a trip. Everybody hates the middle part. When you pull out of your driveway, everybody's happy and everybody's excited. The next time everybody's happy and is excited is when you're pulling into the destination. Because we've lost patience, we've lost appreciation, we've lost value for the journey. We don't find that valuable. From a perceptive standpoint, it's worth absolutely nothing. In process means nothing anymore. And if you really want to get down to it, almost all of you will be in process longer than you will have had the status of quote unquote making it. And again, I don't even understand what that is supposed to mean these days. We've taken that definition and we've given it over to other people. So as long as we don't know, that's a moving target. People change, their opinions change. Lord knows that. I mean, one day, I remember at one point on YouTube when having 10,000 subscribers was a major thing. And now it's nothing. I mean, it's like if you don't have 10,000 subscribers, you're not even a YouTuber. Now it's 100,000. Now it's 1 million. So that's a moving target. So if you're setting your goals and you're setting your definition of this will mean that I'm making it, that is temporary because that goalpost will change. The yardage will change. 10 years ago, it was 10,000. Today, it's 100,000. So when you reach, if you were working, trying to get 10,000, and you finally get 10,000, But now that goalpost is moved and it's 100,000. Did you make it or did you not make it? See, to me, you made it. If your goal was 10,000, then don't worry about what somebody else's goal is. Don't worry about what somebody else's definition of making it is. You set those terms. You set those definitions. I can't tell you how important this is. This is why I think we have so many people out there that feel like failures. Because they're living under somebody else's definition. And you're constantly trying to live up to what somebody else perceives as the definition of making it. Listen, we all want to leave our mark. We all want to leave a legacy. But I think it's as equally as important to know what that is. You know, the legacy is not the end destination. The legacy is not found on the top of the mountain. The legacy is on the trip up. And I think a lot of us forget that. What concerns me more than anything is that most of these are self-imposed. We wonder why we have mental health problems. We wonder why we have overwhelming numbers of depression and suicide and tons more of drug use. It's rampant. And like I said, what concerns me is that most of this is self-imposed. We look at others that have, quote, made it, and we assign that definition to ourselves and our paths, careers, and ultimately we allow the public and their perception of making it to become our own personal definition. A definition that we hold ourselves responsible to. And again, it's not ours. It's somebody else's. We constantly try to live up to and accomplish that definition that somebody else has set. And it's number one, you'll never live up to it. Like I said, it's a moving target. It changes. You'll never live up to it. What do I think that making it should mean? I think making it should be different for every single human being. It should be individual. Individual meanings for our personal and professional lives that we set. Not the definitions that somebody else's set, because that, again, that's going to change. And our definition of success or making it shouldn't be based on what the success or accomplishments of others looks like. And that's hard in the society and the day and age that we live in right now, because we determine success levels by what we see on TV, by what we see on social media. That, that person is driving that car, that means they're successful. This person lives in this particular neighborhood and has a big house. They've made it. They're successful. I'm going to be real honest with you folks. There are a lot of very unhappy, unsuccessful people driving very expensive cars and living in very big, expensive houses. They're unhappy because their happiness is not derived from having that car, that house, or that status. They thought it would be, but they're unhappy because they realized that they achieved and got all of those things because that's the way it's supposed to be. This is how I show people that I'm successful. This is how I show people that I've made it, so that I get put in this other category. That I'm not in this category with all these people that are in process or that haven't made it yet. They're unhappy because they've received those things and they were chasing the wrong destination. They got those things and realized that is not the personal definition of making it. Those are not the things that are going to make them happy or keep them happy. And a lot of times, it's just the way that it works, folks. You know, a lot of you out there, the analytics on the podcast show me there's a lot of you guys that listen that are younger. And I'm going to be real honest with you. It's going to take you a while to reach either your level of definition of success or the public perception or the public's definition. It's going to take you a while. And one of the things that I know for sure is that the things that you will want and the things that you will define yourself as having made it will change when you are in your mid-40s versus where a lot of you are right now in your early to mid 20s. Those things change. They changed for me. All along the journey, I've said before, I had distinct definitions of what I considered making it to be. Big houses, lots of sports cars, money. Lifestyle was more lifestyle oriented. That was me all through my 20s and a large part of my 30s, was trying to achieve, but more importantly than achieve, I only achieved to acquire. So I thought the more that I acquired, the more I was living up to this definition of making it or being successful. Something happens when you turn 40. I don't know what it is, but all of those definitions changed for me. I sold all of my cars. I think at one point I was at 9, 10, or 11 cars, something like that. Sold all of the cars. Got rid of the big houses because those things didn't make me happy. What makes me happy now is doing what I absolutely love to do on a day-to-day basis. That makes me very happy. Whether people want to say that that's making it or not, I don't really care, but it's my definition of what making it means. I no longer attribute that definition to the car that I drive or the house that I live in or the amount of money in my bank account. The only reason that I've gotten to a point now where I care anything about money, and listen, I can't complain. I've been very blessed. I've been very blessed. But the reasons that I care about money now are from a more realistic and mature perspective, and that is being able to pay for my kid to go to college, paying for both of them to be able to go to college if they both want to go, giving them a roof over their head that nobody can take away, putting food on the table, doing for them. It's not so much anymore about me. It's more about them. And I draw my happiness and my satisfaction, and more so my definition of making it, as it reflects on them. Now, them making it is more important to me. And it's more important for me for them to make it under their own terms. My oldest wants to be an attorney. She's going to go to college. She's going to go to law school. She's going to become an attorney. But guess what? If that changes, I'll support it 100%. My youngest wants to get into acting. She also wants to do real estate. She loves real estate. If that changes, I'm fine with that. What I don't want either one of them to do is try to live up to somebody else's expectation other than their own. Health. And I think I mentioned this before. If you haven't seen the interview that I did with Frank Stallone, go back and watch that interview, because here's a guy that has accomplished a ton in his lifetime. Grammys, Oscars, been in some of the biggest movies of all time, has written some great songs for some of the biggest movies of all time. His brother's probably one of the 3 most famous people on the face of the planet. And at the end of that interview, I asked him what was most valuable to him out of all of his accomplishments. And the answer that he gave was his health. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have understood his answer. Today, in my mid-40s, I understand that answer. I am more grateful that I woke up this morning and my wife, myself, and my 2 girls are healthy. That is more valuable to me than anything I'm trying to accomplish financially, professionally, career-wise, business-wise. It's more important to me than how many people subscribe or listen to the podcast. Those are the things that matter. So I want to wrap this up. I don't want to go on forever. I don't want to beat a dead horse. But guys, I want to encourage you to I want all of you to make it. And I want you to want to make it. But I want you to make it under your own terms. I don't want you out there trying to live up to a definition that I've created, or a definition that Billboard magazine creates, or a definition that Vogue magazine creates, or Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. Don't attribute your success or failure and the level thereof dependent on somebody else's definition. Set your own stakes. Set your own parameters and your own boundaries, and most importantly, your own definition on what making it big actually means to you. What does it look like? I've been able, and this is a true story. I have been afforded an amazing life. I've traveled all over the world. I've been fortunate. I've written hit songs. I've produced hit records. I have a circle of some really great friends. I've done some amazing things in my lifetime. Things that honestly I never thought that I would get to do. And I have been very blessed. But I find it equally as important to say that I also have friends that have not lived the lifestyle that I've lived, but are just as happy as I am. Because where they may not have accomplished things that the public says you have to accomplish to be successful or to have made it. Because nobody knows about them. They don't have 50,000 followers on Instagram. They don't have 400,000 people that listen to their podcast. They don't have any of that, but they've made it because they made it according to their own definitions. They're doing what it is they love to do. They love their families. They have their health. And I get frustrated because a lot of times I see and I hear people that talk about people like those of my friends that live that way. They just didn't set the bar high enough. And how wrong is that? Who are we as individuals to determine where the bar is for anybody else? Who's to say that if you choose to do this for a living and you don't choose to try to go and be known and be popular and do all of this, that this is all I want to do down here. This is my definition of happiness. If you reach that level, who are we to say that they didn't reach high enough? I guess my overall point, guys, is set your own bar. Stop relying on other people to tell you what the definition of making it means. The only person that matters is you. You set the tone. You set the definition. And when you tell somebody that I'm going to make it big someday, know exactly what you mean. And don't ever let that change. Guys, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Steve Freeman Podcast. Don't forget, rate, review, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, click the bell so that you're notified every time a new episode is uploaded every Monday and Friday, and now even on Wednesdays with the midweek update. But if you're on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, rate us 5 stars, leave us a written review. Visit the show notes section, go to thestevefreeman.com. You can find links to social media. You can find me at thestevefreeman everywhere. Guys, until next time, keep being creative, keep pressing the boundaries, and there is nothing wrong with being independent. There's also nothing wrong with being in process. See you guys in the next episode.
Thanks for joining us for the Steve Freeman Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow Steve on social media at the Steve Freeman.